Marcus's eyes were steel. I want accountability. The officers who mistreated Amara have been suspended, but that's not enough. I want policy changes. I want mandatory training on implicit bias. I want safeguards so that no one else is arrested without their alibi being checked first. And I want Gerald and Victoria Brennan to answer for their role in this. The room erupted in questions, but Marcus raised a hand. Amara has been through enough. We're not taking questions today. But I will say this. If you think you can target innocent people to settle personal scores, you're wrong. And if you think I'll stand by and let it happen, you don't know me at all. He stepped away from the podium and the press conference ended. But the story had just begun. Within hours, the video of Amara's testimony went viral. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags like Justice for Amara and Believe Her trended nationwide. News outlets picked up the story. Civil rights organizations called for investigations. And Gerald Brennan's world started to crumble. His company's stock plummeted. Sponsors pulled funding. Business partners distanced themselves. Within a week, evidence surfaced I gave birth to triplets in handcuffs, and no one believed the babies were his until he walked into that room and said 6 words that changed everything. I never thought I'd be that girl, the one people whisper about, the one they look at with pity mixed with judgment. But there I was, 21 years old, 8 months pregnant with triplets, sitting in a county holding cell because I couldn't afford bail for a crime I didn't commit. They said I stole from the university lab where I worked part-time. Someone had taken expensive equipment, and because I was the scholarship kid, the poor black girl who cleaned beakers and organized samples, I was the easy target. No lawyer, no character witnesses, just me, my growing belly, and a court date that kept getting pushed back. The father? Gone. Or so everyone thought. What they didn't know was that those babies weren't some random mistake. They were the result of 1 semester, 1 research project, and 1 man who had looked at me like I mattered. Dr. Marcus Chen, visiting professor, biotech genius, billionaire heir to a pharmaceutical empire. He'd been at our small state university for 4 months, running a special program, and I'd been assigned as his lab assistant. We weren't supposed to happen. He knew it, I knew it. But late nights in the lab turned into conversations about everything except science. He saw me, not my scholarships or my secondhand clothes, or the way I stretched every dollar. He saw the person I was trying to become. Then he left, back to his world of board meetings and business empires, and I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks later, with 3 babies. 3. I tried to reach him, I really did, but his assistant blocked my calls. His email bounced back, and when I finally scraped together enough money to send a certified letter to his company headquarters, I got a legal response threatening me with harassment charges if I continued contact. So I stopped trying. I was going to do this alone, work through my pregnancy, finish my degree somehow, figure out daycare for 3 infants on a student budget. I had it all planned out in my head, even though the numbers never quite added up. Then the theft happened, and suddenly I wasn't planning nurseries anymore. I was planning how to survive. The contractions started on a Tuesday. I was lying on the thin mattress in my cell, trying to breathe through the tightness in my belly when the first real pain hit. It felt like my body was tearing in half. I called for the guard, but she barely looked up from her phone. "You've been saying your stomach hurts for 3 days. Cry wolf enough times, honey." "This is different," I gasped. "Please, something's wrong." She finally glanced over, saw the way I was doubled up, and her expression shifted slightly. Not to concern, just to annoyance, like I was creating extra paperwork for her shift. They took me to the prison wing of the county hospital, not the regular maternity ward where women get to have their partners hold their hand and play music and pretend birth is beautiful. The prison wing, where they restrain you to the bed, where guards stand outside your door, where you're still a criminal first and a mother second. The doctor who examined me was tired, overworked. He barely made eye contact. "You're at 7 centimeters. Baby A is in position. This is happening tonight. Babies, I corrected through gritted teeth. Triplets. He looked at my chart like he was seeing it for the first time. Right, triplets. We'll need to keep you monitored. High risk. High risk, like I didn't already know that. Like I hadn't spent months terrified that my body would fail these babies before they even had a chance. They put the restraints on during active labor. I'll never forget that feeling. The cold metal around my wrist chained to the bed rail while my body was trying to bring 3 lives into the world. The nurse who attached it wouldn't look at me. She just clicked it shut and walked away. Is this necessary? I asked the guard stationed by my door. A different one now, older, male. He looked at me like something that might bite. Protocol, he said. Protocol. I was chained like an animal while trying to become a mother. The pain got worse. They gave me an epidural, but it only worked on one side. I could feel everything on my right side, every contraction, every moment my body tried to split open. And through it all, that metal cuff reminding me that I wasn't human here. I was inmate number 2847. I pushed for 40 minutes before the first baby came. A girl. Tiny and perfect and screaming with rage at the world she'd just entered. They held her up for 2 seconds, just long enough for me to see her face, then whisked her away to clean and check her. I couldn't even reach for her. The restraint pulled tight when I tried. "Where are you taking her?" I called out. No one answered. 12 minutes later, the second baby, another girl, smaller than the first. Her cry was quieter, almost uncertain, like she wasn't sure this world was safe enough to announce herself to. "Please," I begged, "can I hold them for just a minute?" The nurse looked at the guard. The guard shook his head. "After delivery," the nurse said softly, and I could hear the apology in her voice even if she couldn't say it. The third baby took longer. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the way the doctor's voice changed, the way more people suddenly appeared in the room, the way everyone moved faster. "Baby's in distress," someone said, heart rate dropping. Terror flooded through me. I pulled against the restraint without thinking, desperate to do something, anything. "I need you to push harder," the doctor ordered. "Right now, give me everything." So I did. I pushed like my life depended on it, because maybe it didn't, but hers did. And then she was out. My third daughter, silent at first. Those 3 seconds of silence were the longest of my life. Then she gasped and cried, and the sound was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. They took her too. All 3 of my babies, somewhere I couldn't see them, couldn't touch them. I was still restrained, still bleeding, still being stitched up like a broken thing that needed repairing. "Are they okay?" I kept asking. "Please, someone tell me if they're okay." "They're in the NICU," a nurse finally said, "being monitored. Triplets born at 36 weeks need extra attention." "Can I see them?" She looked at the guard again. This seemed to be the pattern. Every request filtered through the person with the gun. "Once you're cleared and back in your cell," he said. "If you're approved for a supervised visit." If I was approved to see my own children. I lay there in that recovery room, still chained to the bed, and felt something inside me break that had nothing to do with childbirth. I'd just brought 3 lives into this world under the worst possible circumstances, and I couldn't even make sure they were breathing okay. That's when I heard the commotion in the hallway. Voices raised, someone saying, "Sir, you can't just," and another voice, deeper and familiar, saying, "Watch me." The door opened, and Marcus walked in. He looked different than I remembered, sharper, harder, like the 4 months since I'd last seen him had carved away something soft. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire education, and his face was a storm of barely controlled fury. His eyes found me on that bed, took in the hospital gown, the IV, the restraint on my wrist, and something in his expression cracked. "Get that off her," he said quietly. Too quietly. It was the kind of quiet that made people nervous. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but you need to leave," the guard said, moving forward. Marcus didn't even look at him. He pulled out his phone and made one call. Henry, I need the hospital administrator, the county sheriff, and whoever's in charge of this facility in this room in the next 5 minutes. Yes, now. He hung up. Looked at the guard. That restraint? Off. Now. I can't do that without authorization. Then get authorization, because if she's still wearing that when my lawyers get here in, he checked his watch, 12 minutes, I'm going to own this hospital, this county, and probably your house. The guard's radio crackled. Someone on the other end said something I couldn't hear. His face went pale. He unlocked the restraint. The relief of having my wrist free almost made me cry more than the pain had. Marcus moved to the side of my bed. His hand hovered near mine but didn't touch, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. The babies, he said. Where are they? NICU. They won't let me see them. They said... I don't care what they said. He turned to the nurse who'd been quietly trying to become invisible in the corner. Take me to them. Now. Sir, only parents. I am the parent. His voice didn't rise, but every person in that room felt it. Those are my daughters, all 3 of them. And you're going to take me to them immediately, or I'm going to make sure your name is first on the lawsuit list. The nurse looked at me. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure what I was confirming. That he was their father? That I wanted him involved? That I was too exhausted to fight anymore? She led him out. I lay there, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus was here. Marcus knew about the babies. Marcus had just threatened to sue an entire hospital system to get that restraint off me. 5 minutes later, the hospital administrator arrived, then a county official, then 2 men in expensive suits who I assumed were lawyers. They had a very quiet, very intense conversation outside my door. I caught words like liability and violation of rights and settlement. Marcus came back. Behind him, a nurse wheeled 3 tiny plastic bassinets. They said you can hold them, he told me, for as long as you want. They placed the first baby in my arms, my oldest daughter by 12 minutes. She was so small, so impossibly small and perfect. I'd created this. My body had made this tiny human who was already gripping my finger like she knew I was hers. The tears came then, all of them. Everything I'd been holding back through the arrest and the trial delays and the labor. I cried while holding my daughter, and Marcus stood there watching me with an expression I couldn't read. They let me hold all 3 of them, skin to skin, finally. My girls, each one different already. The oldest, alert and watching everything. The middle one, calm and content. The youngest, my fighter, sleeping peacefully after her rough entrance. How did you know? I finally asked Marcus. How did you know I was here, that they were born? I didn't. His voice was rough. I only found out you were pregnant 2 days ago. I stared at him. What? My assistant, the one who blocked your calls and sent that legal threat? He looked away, jaw tight. She was trying to protect me from what she called opportunistic claims. She kept an entire file of communications from you that I never saw. I fired her yesterday when I found out, and then I've spent the last 48 hours trying to find you. I sent you a letter, certified mail. I know. I found it in her desk, unopened. He ran his hair through his hair. I also found out about the theft charge, the bail you couldn't make. I had investigators looking into the case. The real thief was arrested this morning, confessed to everything. Some graduate student with a gambling problem. The middle baby made a small sound and I adjusted her in my arms. So, I'm cleared? All charges dropped. You're being released as soon as the hospital clears you, which I'm making sure happens with actual medical care, not whatever this, he gestured at the prison wing, was supposed to be. Why? I had to ask. Why do all this? You left, you moved on. You could have sent child support and never seen us again." Marcus looked at the babies, really looked at them, and his whole face changed. "I told myself I left because it was complicated, because I had responsibilities, because getting involved with you was irresponsible." He shook his head. "But the truth is, I left because I was scared. Scared of what I felt. Scared of how real you made everything. My whole life has been boardrooms and expectations and building an empire. And then you talked about science like it was magic. And suddenly I wanted different things." He moved closer. Still didn't touch me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. "And then I find out you were trying to reach me, that you were pregnant, alone, that you were arrested while carrying my children and I wasn't there." His voice broke slightly. "That you gave birth in chains because I was too cowardly to check my own mail." "They're okay," I said softly. "We're okay." "You're not okay. None of this is okay." He finally looked at me, really looked at me. "But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. I don't care if you want me involved or not. I don't care if you hate me for not being here sooner. I'll raise all three of them with you, or I'll raise them alone if you want nothing to do with me. But they're my daughters, and you're the mother of my children, and I'm going to make sure you never have to face anything like this again." I should have been angry, should have told him he couldn't just show up after all this time and make promises. But I was so tired, and he was here, and my babies were in my arms, finally safe. "I don't want you to do it alone," I heard myself say. "I don't want to do it alone either." Something in his face softened. "Then we'll do it together." The oldest baby started fussing, and Marcus reached out instinctively. I passed her to him, and he held her like she was made of glass. This billionaire genius, who probably ran board meetings and made million-dollar decisions, looked absolutely terrified of the 6-pound infant in his arms. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "Neither do I said. "We'll figure it out." And we did. It wasn't easy. Nothing about those first few months was easy. There were feedings every 2 hours, 3 babies who all seemed to need something different at the same time, and the exhaustion that comes from never sleeping more than an hour at a stretch. But Marcus was there for every night feeding, every diaper change, every moment I thought I might actually lose my mind from crying babies and no sleep. He moved us into his place, not because he expected anything, but because it had space for 3 cribs and a night nurse and all the things 3 premature infants needed. He hired a lawyer who got my record completely expunged. He set up college funds for all 3 girls before they were a month old. But more than any of that, he showed up for the pediatrician appointments and the midnight panics when one of them ran a slate fever. For the day I broke down crying because I felt like I was failing at everything. For the small victories, like when the youngest finally gained enough weight to leave the NICU charts behind. 6 months later, he asked me to marry him. Not because of the babies, not because it was expected, but because somewhere between the 3 a.m. feedings and the chaos of triplets, we'd found what we started in that lab. That thing that made us see each other as more than circumstances. I said yes. My daughters are 3 years old now. They're wild and loud and so full of life that sometimes I can barely catch my breath watching them. The oldest is already reading. The middle one builds elaborate structures out of blocks and explains the engineering to anyone who'll listen. The youngest runs like she's got somewhere important to be and refuses to let anything slow her down. They'll never remember the way they entered this world, and I'm grateful for that. But I'll never forget the night I gave birth in chains and thought I'd lost everything, only to find out I was actually gaining more than I'd ever imagined. Sometimes the worst moments are just the darkness before everything changes.